I think this is when I realized, damn, I wish I had a dad to tell me this and this and this. If I grow up in a township and I see Ubaba Mhlongo driving an Audi or a BMW, that's my ceiling. I remember this one time my stepdad literally told her that, bro, this is a guy. Let him be a guy.
Yeah.
Like, let him go through something. Just let him be. White people will start from a half full cup growing up, but see, it does not give me the right to look down upon myself just because I did not start from a car or a house.
Yeah.
I can also still make that because God has put something in me, which is purpose.
What if I make the same mistakes? What if I'm not available for my kid? What if I'm not there emotionally for my kid? My mom kind of babied me a bit too much,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I'm having to figure some things out, and I can't be like, mom, mom, mom. Because now I'm in Johannesburg, my mom's in Durban. I can't be like mom and keep turning to mom. Rather say, Angnamal, because he'd say we. I'm like, no, no, no. Rather say I. Don't include me. Don't include me. So I can see you stubborn and set. You stubborn and set in your ways of I don't have money, I'm poor. Rather say I. Rather don't say we.
I can be rich, but have a poor mindset or a poor man's mindset, and I'm never gonna grow because I'm still in the township. I'm still in Newlands. I'm still Gamash. I'm still in Lamont, but I'm rich.
As a gent, you want your dad to follow. Like you want those
that
words,
validation, bro.
That validation of I'm proud of you. So I have my boy Mfundo here. Mfundo is my best friend since grade 8. It has been 11 years of this friendship. 11 years of
11 years of craziness.
11 years of this gent annoying me. 11 years of this gent always being on my case and stressing me out. But yeah,
Of course, you can say that again.
11 years of brotherhood, honestly. Thank you so much that you could just take the time and engage with me today. I'm really, really excited. I think maybe before we jump into it, just for those who are listening, just a bit about yourself and who you are.
How do I start? So I've always tried with when I go to interviews, I don't introduce myself as my profession or my achievements. And it's such a hard thing to do.
That's a default, eh? That's a default. Who are you?
Dude,
I'm a singer.
Who am I? Yeah. Flip, bro. But I'll say Mfundo Mzobe. I come from Newlands West. I grew up in like as I said, a township-like environment. I grew up in a Christian home, Christian background, church, with my mother, my stepdad, and my 3 sisters, 2 younger and 1 older. Yeah, what else about me? I'm a very purpose-driven person. I'm a very inquisitive person. I like to learn. Um, and yeah, that's me without my achievements.
Without your achievements and titles.
Without my achievements, and titles.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's just me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Awesome. And so you were just saying like coming from a background of well, you have siblings, 3 siblings, 2 younger and 1 older, so and sisters, basically being specific. So you're the only male son in a home of how many?
So 3, 4, 5. So six of us.
Yeah.
And then I'm the one being the boy, and then my stepdad.
Your stepdad. How was it growing in a female dominated environment?
A lot of estrogen, a lot of progesterone, a lot of drama. But dude, I think my mother did a very good job with raising and grooming me in an environment where it was only girls, and she basically played the role of mother and father at the same time.
Yeah.
My dad was there. Well, my dad, yeah, he was there, but he was not in the scene, you
Yeah.
know. So he wasn't, well, it wasn't present as a father
Yeah.
as much as I would have loved him to be. So I think my mother played quite a huge role in being able to become a two-in-one and
Yeah.
being a mother and father. Um, so it's been good. And with my mom, I think she's a very wise woman. My mom is a wise woman. She consciously she didn't raise me the same way she raised my sisters. As much as it was very tempting
Yeah.
for her to be so overly protective to me. I remember this one time my stepdad literally told her that, bro, this is a guy. Let him be a guy.
Yeah.
Like, let him go through something. Just let him be,
Yeah.
you know. So she would treat me differently from my sisters in terms of maybe helping Mali if I needed anything at school or I needed to buy something. She
Mm.
wouldn't just give me money. It would be a thing of, bro, I'll give you half and then the other you'll find out who's it's all up.
Go hustle.
She always said, "Into family plan, but make a plan, dog. As long as ungatshontshanga, she was like,
Yeah.
as long as ungatshontshanga,
No
bona
crime,
ukuthi
but
wenzenjani, you know. So, no crime, but make a plan, bro.
yeah.
So obviously, in everything that you do, there's a good and a bad out of it, you
Yeah.
know. Because at first, I looked at it as, dude, like, why umhlukumeza? I know I'm a guy. I know he wants to treat me differently. I know what you're also explaining.
Yeah.
What as a guy, I must be able to make a plan and find ways to make things work. You know, but at the same time, when I look at how independent I am now and looking at how I can make things work, I think even my partner is very privileged to have this type of fundo because I make a plan,
You,
though.
yeah.
You know. So yeah, that's just been how it is. I think I always joke around and say I was almost gay, you know, because it is just full of
Yeah.
girls. And to make it worse, we also lived with my two cousins that were also female.
Sure.
Yeah, well, so it is just a lot of females around me,
Yeah.
and as a result, I resonate a lot more with females than males.
Yeah.
While I was growing up, I think I make good relationships with females, and as a result, again, I have quite a couple of female friends,
Yeah.
which sometimes doesn't rub well for a lot of people. So yeah, that's just how it's been growing up in a female dominated household. But yeah, but it's been good.
Yeah, man.
I think I also got a chance to understand
Yeah.
how females think
Mm.
and just knowing Namabuti when I actually get a partner, Noma, I know now what I look for and the certain thinking pattern of Abad Besfazane that I got from just growing up with females.
Yeah.
So that's how it's been.
Sure. No, and I get what you're saying. Like the joking of almost being gay. I remember growing up. So similarly with you, I grew up in a household, two female cousins, my mom, my grandmother, and my uncle. Um, so literally, it's just been females growing up to the point where
Yeah.
even playing with them or just doing stuff, and they were older than me, but we grew up together, we do
Mm.
stuff together. So I remember at times they'll paint my nails, and it was like it is what it is, and you just and it's fine. It's just
Is what
always
it
fun,
is.
and you're just growing up together, and it was that thing of
Yeah.
I remember at some points I was like, I don't remember at what stage, but I just thought of myself and I'm like, it is quite interesting that I am not gay or do not have any kind of
It
physical
is.
attraction to gents. So when you make that
Yeah.
joke of like, yo, it's funny I didn't turn out gay, it's like, actually, no, as much as we can joke about it,
Yeah.
it's like, it could have gone either way because this is the kind of environment. Which
Yeah.
leads me to my next question, like, was there any disadvantage in not growing up and having the presence of your father, like, because similar in my case, I think I do have a dad. I know my dad, but it's there's been many periods where he hasn't been physically present and emotionally present in my life, not
Yeah.
there for milestones, not there just in the sense of me growing up. So he wasn't necessarily as intentional with raising me as his son.
Mm.
Yes, there have been times where maybe he has been a bit more present, but for the most part, it was just, he's not necessarily around. And all I
Yeah.
have is my mom and my grandmother. For me, my grandmother was that pillar and played a huge role. She
Mm.
was both my mother and my father. Even though she was my
Yeah.
grandmother, she was there raising me. She was there at a time when my mom wasn't working yet. She took care of me
Yeah.
basically, and then until my mom also got a job, and then she could also then be more hands on from a financial point of view in terms of taking care of me. And so here are these two females being
Mm.
in my life and raising me as a boy. And I just can't help but think, was there a disadvantage maybe that happened in not having my father around or not
Mm.
having a consistent male figure? Because I say consistent because there were male figures that
Yeah.
are around, whether it's an uncle. I do have some male cousins. I didn't grow up with them in the same household. They lived with their parents, but I do have male cousins. But again, as I was saying, it's not necessarily consistent male figures in my life that are intentional
Yeah.
in, being a father figure in my life. I don't know if maybe it's a similar situation on
Mm.
your side. And did you maybe feel, or maybe later on looking at it, is there some kind of disadvantage where
Yeah.
it's like there is a need for a father
Mm.
in the household, especially with sons?
Yeah. Mm. Um, I'll start here, but I think in life in general, how we grow up, our upbringing, our circumstances, we obviously cannot change that. And I think God make us be groomed in a certain way, or brings circumstances for us to become certain people, no matter in preparation of whatever destiny or purpose that we need to serve.
Yeah,
He gives us that on purpose. He obviously knew us before the foundation of the earth, so he knew exactly what he's doing. So me growing up, I think growing up without a dad, I kind of use that as fuel to achieve a lot.
yeah,
Um, so I always sometimes wonder how I would have turned out if I actually had a present dad,
yeah,
because people have this misconception of, would say, just because you grew up in a home where there's a dad and a mother, you automatically live a perfect life. There's some people who are actually they are traumatized, no matter they're hurt by the fact that I have two parents, but it seems like I don't have any.
yeah,
So just because you have two parents doesn't necessarily mean what you have two present parents. You have kids who have both their parents in the house, but it seems like they're not there because they're just focusing on work or business or whatever.
yeah,
So starting there, I think uNkulunkulu played his role in grooming me the way I am, Noma grooming me the way he did, without having a dad, and I use that as fuel. Ukuthi, I'm gonna use this and just show this guy ukuthi so I can do it without him,
yeah,
you know. But it was a fuel for just a couple of years until I start growing. Yeah, well, I think in life you always change fuel. You can't use the same fuel in different circumstances or situations.
mm,
So, and Nami being the very purpose and results driven person, I wouldn't say it affected me. Well, according to me, growing up, it didn't necessarily affect me, but now as I'm this grown, yeah, bro. I actually lost my dad about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think this is when I realize, damn, I wish I had a dad to tell me this and this and this. So, unfortunately, he passed on when we were actually trying to figure things out. We were trying to create a relationship.
Mm.
Um, and unfortunately, yeah, it didn't get to the point where I would have loved it to get to. But at the same time, I'm not blaming anyone for that. I'm not blaming God for that because Nkulunkulu knew exactly why he had to live for that long. And
Yeah.
with that being said, again, um, I don't feel any guilt because I tried my best to firstly forgive him, forgive myself, and be happy that he saw a glimpse of my success. Yeah,
Yeah.
bo? But see, I think Jabang Shilo, as I've grown now and I was growing, I think 20s, mid 20s, I think that's when I started feeling the gap. Kakhulu.
Mm.
When you now start getting your first big job, when you start buying a car, when you start choosing a partner, you just need that person who's a male figure, which even your mom can't replace, who's
Yeah.
going to be like, "Mfana wami, yabo manje, njengoba usuzongena kule stage sempilo, nazi izinto ekumele uyibheke,
Yeah.
nazi izinto ekumele uyiqalaze," yabo. And also with females, the response is different from umama no baba.
Yeah.
Umama is going to be overprotective. It's no, le ntombazane idlala ngengane yami, this and this and this. Whereas ubaba would be like, no, akafundi ukuthi amantombazane ahlukile. We have different types of females. Khona anje, khona nje, anje. Ukukhula lokho.
Yeah.
Myeke fambule.
Yeah.
Yabo? So I think only now I'm realizing it's yo, bro, I really yearn that talk, that
Yeah.
pep talk from my dad. Yabo? Umuntu akafike nje kumina ethi kwenzakalani impilo yakho wena ngiworried ngawe.
Yeah.
Yabo? Like those are the things ongayinaki mosamncane, but as you grow up, like you wish there's somebody who's going to take you out for lunch, as awkward as it is, because you know how black dads are, bro. They're very
Yeah.
awkward. Like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, I'm worried now, you know? So I think it's disadvantage you figure manje ngoba sengikhula because now I don't have um ngathini a blueprint per se of ukuthi how a father figure should look like. Yabo? And this is me in no way discrediting my stepdad. My stepdad has played a perfect role in my life. He's been there for me from the time I was very young. I think I was at about 5 or 6 when he came into my life, and he's been good, bro. He's been good. But I think in Nai he has his own reservations of ukuthi, yes, this is Ingane Yankosikazi wami, but at the same time, I will not replace Ubabwak, and I cannot
Yeah.
replace Ubabwak. And in Nai, coming from a home whereby Ubaba was Ubaba only by buying clothes and food. That's all.
Yeah.
So he's not really he's not really equipped ekubeni ubaba because he also needs to be fathered, you know.
Yeah.
So I would say ukuthi, I grew up depending on my fuel for a father figure
Mm.
and looking at what is right according to society one and according to Christianity two.
Mm.
Yabo ukuthi, oh, okay, this is what ukukhula with the father figure looks like. And I remember this one time, Uma, because as I was growing up, um, as umfana ingane they speak and they're like, no, awukwazi nje ukukhulisa stepfather sahlukumezana and all of
Ish.
this, you know,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
stigma nje around stepfathers.
Yeah.
So Nami, I took that and I ran with it. So ngisakhula, we really didn't have a good relationship with my stepdad until I realized, no, man, actually this guy is actually a nice guy, you know.
Yeah.
There's no need for me to have beef with him, you know. And I remember my mom telling me, "Ukuthi, Fundo, forget about the physical dad that you have, which is your biological dad. Forget about the dad who's your stepfather at this point in time, because clearly you can't seem to find a point where Nyazwana on your biological side and your stepfather. So just make God your father." So I think in me taking that and running with it and making it literal, I
Mm.
think God has been so gracious and merciful in my life in actually grooming me in becoming the man that I am today. And I think that's where uNkulunkulu's grace has been and me not
Mm.
feeling
Yeah.
the gap, yeah, Baba,
Sure.
because you find this ingane zabafana who would do izinto wrong ngamabomo, become rebels on purpose in the name of vela nginawo baba ngizobonela
Yeah.
kubaba, but for God to be so gracious to me and be like, it's fine, but I'll be your father, whatever you ask for I
Yeah.
will give you. And that's been my Christian journey or my praying life with journey yokuthi if I pray to uNkulunkulu ukuthi uNkulunkulu, this is what I'm asking for, I'd literally treat him as my dad and he would give me stuff,
Yeah.
you know so I think that part of my life I honestly didn't feel any disadvantage, but now when I'm starting to make big decisions, of Uguti getting the right woman in my life, getting the right job, how do I act in Simenzini, how do I become a leader at work, when you start buying a car, a house, Wenzenjani, that's when you're
Mm.
like, damn, I
Yeah.
actually do need a father
Yeah.
now more
Sure.
than anything. Yeah, but so I think that's where you feel it with, oh,
Yeah.
I need this guy,
Yeah,
you know.
bro.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
bro.
And I definitely resonate with what you're saying. Like that's so true. Um, it's a similar thing as I think about it. Growing up as a kid, in a way, to some degree, sort of like oblivious to the
Mm,
realities around you. And I use the word oblivious lightly because, well, at least for me personally, I like to believe I was a very perceptive kid, and I could really um, understand a landscape and understand the situation at home. So I was very aware that my
mm,
mom and dad are not together. My dad is now with another woman, and now there's another kid,
yeah.
and so their relationship is not okay. um, and I just have my mom at home and my grandmother, and my mom at the time not having a job, and my dad not being there physically, not being present financially. That I knew that's the landscape, but I also saw, okay, here's my
Mm.
grandmother who provides. And I'd always say to people, I'm like, I didn't grow up poor. I didn't grow up in poverty, even though my mom wasn't working.
You didn't feel
Until
it.
I didn't feel it because my grand provided for me. My
Mm,
grand, like, she
yeah.
really raised me and took care of me for the most part. Um, and so I grew up like every other kid. I grew up having friends. I grew up playing. I grew up going to school. I went to preschool. I had a decent life growing up, a decent childhood.
Mm,
And so, to a
yeah.
certain extent, you're oblivious to
Yeah.
the missing link, if I can put it, to say, hey, there's some person
Mm,
missing here. And then,
yeah.
okay, life grows and you go into stages. And as you're saying, it's now growing up, especially in the 20s, where you start seeing and saying, hey, there's actual lack. And I like that example you're
Yeah.
making, where it's like you'll see the different roles that a mother plays versus a father. I remember seeing this video of a kid. So there's this video, I think it was on Instagram, and it's like they eating dinner. It's a family, mom, dad, and a child.
Mm,
It's a small baby, like maybe going into a toddler, like just between infant and toddler. And
mm,
they fall off the chair, right? The dinner table. At the dinner table, the child is now big enough to sit on a chair, doesn't need a baby seat. So they fall off the
yeah.
chair. And then when they fall off, the mom quickly rushes to try and pick up the kid and put the kid on the chair. But the dad stops the mom, and the
Yeah.
kid is now trying to get on the chair. And this is a fully, a proper chair for grown people. And the kid, you can
Yeah.
imagine, is
Yeah.
quite short and trying to get on, lifting
Mm,
their leg, trying to get on the chair. And the mom every time wants to just help the kid and get the kid on the chair, but the dad
mm,
stops the mom. And
yeah.
maybe after 2 minutes, this kid finally gets up onto the chair and sits
Mm,
on the chair. And it was
yes.
this beautiful picture of just showing that there's this trade off and this relationship and timing of knowing when to nurture, but and knowing
Yeah.
when not to nurture, but actually, just kind of let the child
Allow.
allow life to happen, allow nature
Yeah.
to take place, allow, the
Yeah.
kid to figure it out and
Mm.
not nurture the kid and baby the kid. And you realize a bit
Yeah.
later in life that, oh man, I remember there's a time where then I looked at it and now I'm in my 20s, now I'm still a student and I'm like, man, my mom kind of babied me a bit too much,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm having to
Yeah.
figure some things out and I can't be like, mom, mom, mom. Because now I'm in Johannesburg, my mom's in
Mm.
Durban. I can't be like mom and keep turning to
Yeah.
mom. And I'm like, man, as much as I loved how much she protects me and being around, but it would have been good not to be nurtured in some cases, in some areas.
In some cases.
So you
Yeah.
see that and you see the effects of it now. Like even now, being in the stage I'm in, now I'm about to be a dad. I have my first
Mm.
child on the way, and then I started seeing the fear of, man, what if I make the same mistakes? What if I'm not available for my kid? What if I'm
Eesh.
not there emotionally for my
Yeah.
kid? And I'm starting to see these things,
Mm.
and I'm like, I don't know. And I was actually catching up with a
Yeah.
friend yesterday and speaking with him, he asked me, he says, how are you? You know? And I
Mm.
was like, that question is very interesting because, especially in this current season I'm in, what I've heard the most is, how's the wife doing? How's the baby doing? How's the wife doing? How's the
Yeah.
baby
Eesh.
doing? And that's fine. That's
Yeah.
okay. But I couldn't help but just think and say, well, how about me? How am I doing? Like
Nobody cares about me, you
I'm also
know?
having a baby. Like, how am I doing?
Hmm.
And I was even telling him this, and he's
Yeah.
like, and he's already a dad, and he's like, I know what you're saying. That also
Mm.
hurt me at that stage. It was a lot of, how's the wife doing? How's the baby doing? But not
Yeah.
much of, how are you doing? And I had to just tell him, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I don't have the blueprints. Um, and
Yeah.
I remember even my wife asking me at some point, like, "Hey, do you have gents in your life right now?" And this, I know you have friends. I know, like, you have Mfundo, you have your friends around, but do you have some males, particularly maybe older people who are a bit more ahead? Maybe they're
Old, but
already
yeah.
dads. They're already dads who are
Mm.
kind of on this journey with you of, you approaching fatherhood.
Yeah.
Do you have those people? I'm like,
Mm.
thought about it. I'm like, no. And at that moment,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, man, it would be awesome if my dad was around. Man, it'd be awesome if he's there to,
Right.
like,
Right.
man, it'd be great to be like, look, I understand. Someone to be like, hey, I get around this time.
Mm.
Maybe you're thinking about the fears of, am I ready to be a dad? Maybe you're thinking of provision of,
Yeah.
like, hey, how am I going to provide what needs to be purchased? Where's the provision coming from? Hey,
Mm.
this is,
Yeah.
maybe think about this.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe put this in place. Hey,
Mm.
I know when I was, I started seeing that gap, and I'm like, unfortunately, my mom wouldn't be able to fill that gap. My mom can be there for my
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah.
She can't be there for me in that
Yeah.
space.
True.
But a
Mm.
male's perspective will be so appreciated in that time. So I really, really, I understand that, that gap.
Yeah.
And I agree, like, growing up, you kind of oblivious. You kind of just, you go through life,
Yeah.
enjoy life, you're growing, your childhood, you don't really see
Yeah.
the
You
impact of
move.
it. You just move. But as you get a bit older, it's
Mm.
like, oh man, it actually would be great. So you start to yearn and you start to notice and see those gaps that would be filled,
Yeah.
having a present father or a present, intentional male figure in your life. So I really get that. And just switching gears a bit. So now
Wait, wait, can I just,
yeah,
I have two questions.
yeah, go for it.
Firstly, um, what are certain things that, or words or gestures that you would like, or you would have loved your dad to say or do? Kwena? Like, what's the one thing that you seek for from a father?
The one thing, the biggest one, I have two. The one
Mm.
is his love. Is his love, and
Okay.
and I'll explain like this. I know, it would be wrong of me to even say that my dad doesn't love me. I know my father loves me
Okay.
because as a kid, like I said, I knew my dad. I would see him, but he just wasn't present. And whenever
Yeah.
I'd see him, sometimes it would be weekends, I'll go see him, maybe school holidays, I'll see him. He'll sometimes come over to my house, we'll spend some time, and then he leaves, whatever the case is. And he would always say, I love you. He would always say, I love you. He'd kiss
Mm.
me. He'd kiss me and tell me he loves me. And so I cannot doubt that my father loves me.
Okay.
But what I say, when I
Mm.
say is the one thing that I really desire was my father's love, is that in as much as he said it, he did not actually show it.
Excellent.
People say,
Yeah.
you see many times they say love is a verb. Love is a verb, it's not a noun. And so yes, you can say it,
Yeah.
but if your actions are not showing it, if what you do isn't showing and isn't communicating love, then sadly, no matter how many times you say it, it's not going to mean much. And that was that one area where I'm like, why doesn't he love me? Am I not enough? There were times I'd even question, am I not the son he hoped for? Am I not enough?
Yeah.
Am I not living up to what his expectations are? And that's a very dangerous place I found myself in, because then I would start wanting to act a certain way so that I can get my dad's approval, so that I can
be loved.
receive my father's love. I can be worthy of my father's love. And so I found myself in that space because the actions,
imagine,
because the actions weren't lining up. The actions were just they're not coming together to that point. I try, but it seemed like it's not enough. And I'm not receiving his love. So that was the one. The one was my dad's love is what I wanted. The second of it, being a very close second, is his approval. Like him being proud of me. I think so much.
That's my one, bro, that I wanted to say.
Bro, I feel like so much, whether you realize it or not, as a gent, you want your dad's approval. Like you want those
that
words,
validation, bro.
that validation of I'm proud of you. Like I look at Matthew, I believe it's Matthew 4. Matthew 4, and it's so powerful. Something that changed my perspective of being a son was that in Matthew 4, Jesus is baptized. Before he starts his ministry, before he does anything or accomplishes anything, he's baptized by John. He comes out of the water, and there's this moment and this scene that we read of where the heavens open up, and the Spirit descends on Jesus in the form of a dove. And we hear God's voice coming from the heavens, and it says, "This is my son who I love, and within whom I am well pleased." And there are these three things that are so powerful that take place in this moment. It is identity. One, Jesus is identified with Christ. Jesus is identified with God, that he is God's son. The identity is there. The second is then the love, the affirmation of, I love you, are my beloved. And then the third is, I am pleased in you. The pleasure, the delight, that I'm proud of you. And the most powerful part of it is that God is delighted in Jesus. He says, I'm proud of you. Jesus hasn't done anything. Jesus hasn't turned water into wine. He hasn't done any miracles. He hasn't accomplished anything. He hasn't accumulated, hasn't got a wife or built a house or an empire or whatever. He hasn't done anything. Yet God says, I'm proud of you. I'm well pleased in you before anything is done. And it just shows the power in that validation from your father, that now from that, Jesus then goes on and does his ministry and does all the miracles that we then read about. And I then see how much you see people that you yearn for this. Like, because even if you don't have your dad, even if it's not your dad, maybe you grew up not knowing your dad, maybe he abandoned you, or he died before you were born. But you'll find this in every gent. It might be a cousin, it might be an uncle, it might be some form of male figure that they look up to. They try to please them. You'll find them trying to act like them. I saw this with myself. I have a cousin I look up to. I even say he's my favorite cousin. And I looked up to him in so many ways, in the way I dress, in the music I listen to. Like I wanted to copy his style and for him to kind of approve of it. And then when my dad is around, I look at him as well, and I'm like, I wanna be like him. I wanna drive like he drives. I wanna dress like he dresses. And just to get that validation. So I realize it so much. I'm like, I want his validation. So much that when it's not there, it is so crippling. So that would be for
Yeah.
me the main things, the values or the marks that I looked for
Yeah.
so long in my dad, and
Mm,
unfortunately didn't receive, like, and
yeah.
it's crazy, bro.
Yo, those are big ones. And now that you're mentioning it, I think love is the one Nami probably I would have loved to get from him. Because I mean, I grew up very, as much as I grew up with females around, but see, I grew up in a family whereby affection was not the main thing. Like
Mm,
hugging or saying I love you is such a weird thing at home, you know. So Nami, I grew up with this very cold heart.
sure.
Yeah, bro. Very, very cold in Japan. So I'm just like, bro, if something happens now, it's fine. I'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
For now, let's get our goals,
Mm,
which it's not good, it wasn't good. But I thought that's the way to live because
mm,
Nakon, I think it was some form of a protection for myself, which I don't need this love. So let me not try and even seek for it.
sure.
Yeah, bro. So I had to teach myself how to love.
Yeah.
I taught myself how to make other people feel loved.
Mm,
I remember it got to a point in my life. Even you would say, if umfundo encoma or umfundo compliments you, then whatever you did is really good. Like
yeah.
that's how bad I was. And the people used to tell me that, and I was like, bro, I'm not proud of that.
Sure.
There's something that I'm doing that is wrong. Like people don't have to do so much for me to actually say, well done.
Yeah. I remember. I remember you used to
That's
say.
how.
Sorry to cut you, but I remember you'd say like, what, you don't celebrate mediocrity.
Mediocrity, yes, yes, that's actually me, bro. you know, and the crazy thing is that it wasn't only towards other people, even to myself. I mean,
Sure.
I'm so hard on myself. Like I expect very high stuff of me. I expect very difficult things for myself, yeah,
Yeah.
but which sometimes is a bit detrimental to my health or to myself.
Yeah.
But it made me realize, Woodsy, there's a part of me that is in denial or I'm trying to protect something. Yeah,
Sure.
but so I taught myself how to love. Yeah,
Mm,
but so now that you're mentioning it, maybe I did need my dad's love as much as now in the latter parts of his life he would tell me that he loves me, but I think I would have appreciated or loved him telling me personally
yeah.
and seeing his emotions while saying it.
Yeah.
And to make things better, give me a hug.
Yeah.
Mina, I grew up not doing all those things. I taught myself how to say you look good. I taught myself how to compliment people. I taught myself how to tell people that I love them. I taught myself how to be affectionate. Yeah,
Mm,
but and now that just now thinking about it, I would have loved to get that hug and I love you for my dad. I would have loved for him to
yeah.
say, I'm proud of you.
Sure.
And I was actually looking at our messages, um, our recent messages on WhatsApp, and he's been saying he's proud of me, but if you could just tell me in front of me,
Be
bro,
direct.
and be
What
like,
is it
but
with
mom,
African parents not being direct?
yo, like,
Subliminal.
but mom, I'm so proud of you. You have done so well.
Sure.
You know, you have done so well, and I'm just so proud of you. And then my dad's family is Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
So birthdays, New Year, all of that's not celebrated.
Yeah.
I remember this one time, I think I was in grade 8, and I was like, "Oh, Dad, today's my birthday." He's like, "How are you?" I must celebrate this, and my heart was
Oof.
shattered, bro. So maybe a happy birthday, my son.
Oh.
Ni imal hambo tenga something. I think also that just to say happy birthday, Fanwam,
Mm,
you know.
mm,
So I think it's those things, bro, where you just like, yo, maybe I really needed that from my dad.
yeah.
Because now I I I I think to myself, Uguti, how do I then become a dad to a son or even a daughter?
Mm,
Yeah, but because the one thing that I pray for, Kunkulunkul, is that I do not become hard on my kids because I was so hard on myself.
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't have my kids don't have to do something for me to say I'm proud of them, as you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a study that was done whereby there were a group of kids that were given compliments for achieving certain things, and there were kids who were just given compliments for just being them. And those kids who were given compliments just for being them did well in life,
Sure.
rather than those ones who were given compliments because of a certain achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so I pray, I really pray to God that I do not make my love for my kids transactional, whereby you have to do something in order to get a well done for my dad,
Sure.
or I'm proud of you from my dad.
Yeah.
Like, as I think about being a dad, I really hope I'm not so hard on them, because even with my siblings, bro, it took a while for me or them to get used to me, no matter to please me, and they really look up to me, especially my how old is she? She's like 16-year old, Ellie. So
Yeah.
she really looks up to me, and it took a while for me to start saying I'm proud of you, doing well, like to pay attention to her, because like what do I have to do to get this guy's attention? What do I have to do to get a I'm proud of you from this guy, you know?
Man.
And I really pray that I don't become that dad
Mm.
to Inganzami where they have to say, Dad, I got an 80% at school. I know you'd like 100%, but I'm proud of myself. I
Yo.
don't want to be that dad.
Yeah. Hey.
I don't want to be the dad who says, "Where's the other 20%?" You know. So, yo, yeah, bro.
Bro, that's crazy. And like what you're saying, it's reminding me. I remember Kobe Bryant. There was this interview I was in, and like again to just highlight the significance a father plays in the development of a child, whether son or daughter, was when he was
Mm,
growing up. He shares this story when he was growing up, and it was I think they called it summer league or something, where they played basketball like at like the school. There'd be like a tournament or something like that, and he's in this tournament, and he says the entire tournament he doesn't score not even 1 point. This is Kobe Bryant.
mm,
He doesn't score a free
yeah,
throw. He doesn't score anything, like not a
nothing.
rebound, nothing, right? The entire tournament.
Mm,
And he's mad at himself afterwards, like he's just so disappointed at the end of the tournament. And his dad comes to him, and his dad says, um, son, whether you score 40 points in a game or 0 points in a game, I'm proud of you and I love you,
mm,
and nothing
mm.
you do or say will change my love for you.
How I
And
feel, yeah.
Kobe says that meant and did so much for him, because for him in
Mm,
that moment he knew whether I score 0 points or whether I score 45 points in
mm.
a game, my dad loves
My
me
dad is
and my
proud.
dad is proud of me. And so it gave him,
Easy,
he
bro.
says it gave him the freedom to fail. It gave him the freedom to fail,
Mm,
because now he knew that he had the assurance of his dad's love. So it gave him the freedom to fail.
mm.
But now it's like, even though now he has that freedom, he's like, well, I want to score. I want to get the 40 points. I want to score
Yes,
big, but
but
it just,
at least I know
at
my
least
dad
I
is proud
know,
of me.
so now he had this drive. He
Yeah.
still had this drive to go on and do great things, but it was not contingent. Him
Mm,
succeeding wasn't contingent on his dad's approval. So it just changed
yeah.
his mindset. And I just saw, that power of, the affirmation of your father, and the presence of your father in your life,
Mm,
how it just, it has this power of determining how you develop, how you perform, and what you achieve in life, which is
mm,
just, it's just crazy, man. It's just
yeah.
insane. And so
Yeah.
now I want to switch gears and I want to chat about, you know, especially because we're in the similar space where growing up not having a father in the house, or a presence, maybe
Mm,
father. You then, something that kind of I've noticed becomes a pattern in households is you kind of find yourself having this burden, whether it's been placed on you by your family or it's self-imposed, of you gonna be the man of the house. I remember I
Mm,
remember I was probably maybe in grade six. Like I was still a kid.
yeah,
And already I told myself, I want to make it in life, buy a house for my mom, buy a car for my mom, take
yeah,
care of my siblings. You know, I just was like, I need to do all of this. I remember even
mm,
after my uncle died, who was the only male elder in the household. When he died in 2009,
mm,
I was now the only male in the household. And I remember telling myself,
yeah,
I need to protect this house. Imagine I'm in grade
mm,
five and I'm already thinking to myself, I'm the protector of this household, you know? No one said this. My mom didn't tell me this.
yeah,
My grandmother didn't say this to me,
yeah.
but I just assumed that role of I'm the protector of this household. And I want to talk about that. Like how does that affect, how did it affect you? Was it a similar thing in your case? Where I know your stepdad is also in the picture, obviously, in your household, but was there anything like that?
Mm,
Maybe a self-imposed responsibility, or was it imposed maybe by family,
yeah.
subliminally or directly of, hey, sipege wena?
Uh, so um, so I grew up very being a very sporty person, right? And my career in sports became very serious in high school
Yeah,
about doing athletics, and got to a point where I could you could say it was maybe semi-pro, yeah, but you almost there, yeah, but
yeah,
and again, my fuel is I want to do well to show my dad Uguti I'm able to do it without him. And funny enough, you know how the cliche of sportsmen is that whenever their dads are not there, they're going to do well. So I had that thing in my head, with,
basically.
oh, this is the narrative.
Yeah,
So if your dad is not there, I'm going to make it,
I'm
you
gonna
know? So
try.
I had the narrative, it was, dude, I'm going to make it.
Yeah,
Just because my dad is not there,
yeah,
I fit the criteria, so definitely I'm going to make it.
yeah,
But another fuel for me was Uguti. This was my ticket out of poverty or lack at home. Um, and again, I think uNkulunkulu cut my career short by getting a lot of injuries because again, the fuel was wrong
ish.
and I was doing this with the wrong intention and the wrong purpose of saying, "Uti, I wanna stop poverty. I wanna stop lack. I wanna buy my mom a car. I wanna buy my mom a house." It's like I feel like every boy child who grows up, that's one thing they want to do for their mom, especially
Yeah,
is that I wanna make her feel special. I wanna do this and this and this for her.
mm,
Yeah, well, so there was that self-imposed pressure of Uti, I'm the one who should be doing this for my mom. I'm the one who should be doing this and that. Yeah, but until rock bottom came and my whole mind was just transformed after that. Um, Uti, I really don't have to be the man of the house. Yeah,
yeah,
bro. And in all of this, bro, like we have the self-imposed pressure that we have by ourselves just by being boys, and we also have pressure from home,
mm,
culturally, ukuthi um indoda iyona kumele yenze lokhu, you know.
yep,
And I think I khona la sasikhuluma khona and I even mentioned ukuthi even when in a black home, they would take umfana to varsity and not intombazane to varsity,
sure,
and they would put it ukuthi ngesisi sifebe esikoleni ngoba they basically run away bekhulisa omunye umuzi whereas
yeah,
umfana uzokhulisa ikhaya.
yeah,
So in a way, you are also have that expectation ukuthi so if you do well, you need to come back and you need to ukuvusa umuzi wasekhaya noma uvusa umuzi wababa.
yeah,
There's even a phrase esho njalo ukuthi
yeah,
ngivusa umuzi wababa. So there's two expectations. You have expectations from ourselves and then you have expectations from our families ukuthi okay, once things go well, then yeah, you work higher, then move on with your life. And I think this is why the issue of the mother-in-law and the wife is so prominent in the black culture, because
Yeah.
if I always take care of my family, even when I even start to get married, or now I'm looking into getting married,
Yeah.
and then as soon as I start getting married, a year in or 2 years in, now I can't send the money at home,
Because
and
you have to
then
hustle.
they look at the wife, because ever since the
Sure.
wife came in, there's no more money coming in. Yeah,
Mm.
but so it's just a cycle of a lot of things that happen, and pressure that comes from myself, and that also comes from my family. Would see I need to make something
Mm.
out of what my family had given me, which was education.
Yeah.
And I think yes, limaza le nto as black people, because we can never we can never create wealth in that way,
This is
you
true.
know. So already you growing up with the sense of Wuti, I'm in debt.
Yeah.
I need to pay my parents for unkulisa, you know. And as I was actually showering today, and I was thinking to myself, Wuti, it's actually such a crazy and sick concept of Wuti. Um, so my mom and dad, they make the decision, Wuti, be okay. Most of the time it's not a conscious decision, Wuti. We're gonna have a child, you know,
Yeah.
unless labazali abasha laba who actually plan for ingane.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's a thing of it's okay, my parents are together, they have sex, obviously it leads to ingane. So I'm thinking to myself, Wuti, okay, so these people, they made the conscious decision to mate, and the mating without protection, as a result, I am the consequence of that decision. But you expecting the consequence to repay you.
Yeah.
So you made a decision. You made a decision of what I will do this action, and I'm a consequence of your actions. But in that, you expect the consequence to take care of itself, or you expect the consequence to look after you.
Mm.
Like, I don't get it. So it's like me making a decision ukuthi ngizobulala umuntu, but expecting a friend of mine to go to jail. No, I expect the consequence ingabe yami.
Yeah.
Like, I need so you basically telling me ukuthi the consequence needs to face its own consequences.
Imagine.
Like, this is the decision you made, so face the consequence.
Mm.
Yeah, but so I don't get the thing of ukuthi in the black community ukuthi as a child, Melubuye Kaya, and by the way, I'm not in any way against Ugnayeli Kaya.
Yeah.
Ugnayeli Kaya also comes with so many blessings. It comes
Yeah.
with so much Ugnayeli Kaya, but let it not be an expectation, because that's where the problem comes in.
100%.
Because now when I don't do the way you expect, now there's resentment.
Ish.
Yeah, boy.
100%.
So yeah, bro, growing up, there is that pressure that you impose on yourself, Uguti. I need to man up and be there for my mom, as
Yeah.
much as my stepdad was there. But it's always a thing of Uguti, it's my responsibility to take care of my mom. Um, which is crazy.
Really crazy, bro.
Like, was it when
You know, and they'll throw terms like I remember they'll throw terms like the sacrifices I've made for you, this, you know. But like,
you
bro, I did
know,
not ask to be here. You're making it as if
I'm just a kid,
you
bro.
know. So they'll throw terms like that, and you even see it, like
Oh,
even see it in the names, bro. Oh man, don't get me started on the names you hear, like these back in the day.
Ugusumun.
Abo big moose, like, like you see already.
The
It's
pressure
already
gaga. I
yo.
just arrived.
You
I
just
just arrived.
arrived, and you see the pressure. You see the burden that's already placed on you. Uguti, you're the person
Yo,
who's gonna take care of everyone. It's like, but why? You know, so I get that, man, and it's
why,
such a burden,
bro?
and it feels so unreasonable. Because I like for myself, like I remember, I for me it was self-imposed. Like I said, my mom never said anything of like, ngithembe
Mm.
wena,
Yes, yes, yes.
you're the hope of
Yes.
this family, or whatever the case is. It was not. In fact,
Mm.
my mom actually said quite the opposite of. She would say often, even most recently, she'll even say like, "You don't owe me anything," and she'll say like, "Whatever you do
Mm.
for me, you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. I don't need anything from you."
Yeah.
Like she actually made it
Yeah.
a point to say that, and it was very helpful, like her even saying that. And I remember
Mm.
now you're students, because sometimes it's coming from a good place. You want to do great things, like you're even saying, like it's you're not
Yes.
against taking care of your family and doing stuff for your family or your parents,
Yes.
because it comes with blessing as well. So I remember, like,
Mm.
I had these things, and it's still in my heart. Like, I'd love to see myself buying my mom a house or a car, or taking them on holiday, or, these kind of things.
Mm.
But I
Yeah.
remember as a student, and this is I haven't even graduated yet, it's just as a student, and I'm just seeing how life was progressing, and I'm seeing some of the challenges I'm facing in life already at that stage. And I remember coming to a realization, like, oh man, I remember I kind of made this promise of, I'm gonna put my sister through school. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, that currently
Mm.
doesn't seem possible, you know? And I was like, oh,
Eesh.
I actually, if I'm being honest with myself, it's not possible for me to do this. Yes,
It's not
I
possible,
would have
bro.
loved
Yeah.
to. I would have loved to, but it
Yeah.
doesn't look possible right now, you know? Or in
Yeah.
cases where it's like you want to do something, it's like, but if I do this, I'm setting myself back, or it's going to be to my
Mm.
detriment to do this. I'm going to suffer at the
Mm.
end of the day if I do this. It will be great, it will help them, but I'll
Yeah.
suffer at the end of this, And having to realize that, okay, some
Yeah.
things I want to do, it's not possible to do them. Or maybe I want to do something at this level, but maybe for now I can only do it at this level. And I need to be okay
Mm.
with that. And I'm glad
Yeah.
now I realized that earlier on, because now I'm at a place where I like, firstly, black tax, I don't I don't give into that. The whole black tax notion,
You don't subscribe.
miss me. I'm not there, bro. And it stems from that realization earlier on of, oh man, life doesn't seem like it's not gonna pan out that way. Maybe it won't
Yeah.
happen as soon as I want it
Yeah.
to happen, to maybe do certain things for my family. So I don't subscribe to the whole black
Yeah.
tax notion. So now it's at a place where, even before I got married, and I was working. I remember I was working, and I was like, okay, cool. First income, I took it to my fam. I took it back home, and my mom, great. She blessed me, and then she gave it back to me. Usually, she's like, obviously you have rent to pay, you have things to do.
Mm.
Do that. Um,
Yeah.
and even after that, I was so intentional that, what, I'm not gonna commit to maybe sending
Mm.
home a specific amount of money every month, or
Mm.
committing to taking care of a certain expense, maybe saying I'm going to buy the groceries at home,
Yeah.
or I'm going to pay for the electricity and water bill.
Yeah.
So I made that conscious decision that I'm not going to do this, because I realized that
Yeah.
I don't want to. I think already in my mind I was like, I don't want to create the expectation that this is what it is,
Mm.
because it might bring
Yeah.
along some tension when now I have to stop
Mm.
or change
Yep.
the way it looks.
Yep.
So I made it very intentional
Mm-hmm.
at the early stage. I'm like, you know what? I'll do the great things. Like I'll be, Mother's Day, I'm gonna buy you a gift. Your birthday, I'm gonna do something. When I come home, I'm gonna take you out. So, I'm gonna do something, but it's gonna be sporadic.
Mm.
It's gonna be sporadic, and every now and then.
Mm.
It's not gonna be consistent in the sense of every month on the first of the month, boom, the account is,
Now you expect.
because it becomes an expectation. And
Yeah.
so I've just had to do that, because I've seen, and this was coming from a place of, I saw how it was difficult for my dad. This was when my dad and my mom were still together, and they were trying to build a family together. They were wanting to get married. And so they were obviously doing a lot of things together, even financially. They were sharing the financial burden and stuff.
Mm.
And at home, he was sending a specific amount of money every month. And now, when
Mm.
expenses at home started becoming more, they had my sister. My sister was growing up. Now there's preschool. Now they want to get married. Now they're
Mm.
planning to buy a house together. Now they have to switch and change their finances a bit. it didn't sit well with my grandparents because they used to
Yeah.
getting this
Yep.
amount of money every month. And now he's saying, hey, I'm going to have to revisit this. It's now going to need to look different. And there was some tension with that, you know?
Yep.
So I remember seeing that and struggling with that. I was like, nah, man, I can't do this. I can't continue like that because
Yep.
it's going to be a challenge if I do that and then I have to change later on. It might create some tension, you know? And I don't know if maybe you've seen it in a similar way where maybe something for you, you want to do it as a gift out of the goodness of your heart. But for some reason, it starts getting viewed as an obligation, as an expectation that you should do this rather than it's a gift. I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart and just as a gift towards you. I don't know if, you know, how do you view that?
Funny enough, so I think I foresaw something like that happening because I was sending money at home.
Yeah.
And Umana, she never used to say, see, like there's money that you need to send, yeah, but
Yeah.
ever since like growing up, what she was teaching us is that as you grow, just know if you're getting 100 rand, that all that 100 rand does is not coming to you. So you need to split it somehow. Maybe like a saying, right?
Yeah.
So maybe say you're gonna just give her 20 rand from that money that you made. So
Yeah.
she was basically teaching us there's something called expenses in life. There's something called taxes in life. Your money doesn't come as is 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
but which was a good concept. Yeah,
Yeah.
but good concept. So that's what we were doing. And then before I even got the job that I have now, I was speaking to one of my friends. I think I also spoke to you, saying, Wuti, I'm just thinking to myself, Wuti, now let's just say, for example, I was moving away from home, right? So obviously there's expenses that I wouldn't have had if I was at home and working
Yeah.
a good job. But now I'm away from home. I need to pay rent. I need to pay for electricity. I need to pay for groceries. I need to pay for this and that. I need to
Yeah.
furnish my place, all of those things. Um, and I was thinking to myself, like, let's just say, for example, I'm sending money at home. Let's say I'm sending 2,000 rand at home. And now it got to a point whereby that 2,000 is being used to buy meat or whatever,
Yeah.
or groceries, whatever.
Mm.
It will never look nice when I stop because now you have messed up the plan or the budget
Sure.
of the household Ekaya. If now you move away with this 2,000. So they don't look at the fact that now you have expenses
Yeah.
of rent, of um, car if you have a car,
Yeah.
of furnishing your place and all of that. But what they look at is what is being removed from them,
Oh,
which is inyama.
sure.
So when now you have messed up the whole grocery list, and from me messing up that budget or grocery list, now my mom's kids are not able, for example, to carry 50 rand a week.
Yeah.
Now they'll not be able to pay for Netflix because now that money has to go into Inyam.
Yeah.
So can you see the cascade of the mess that I've made? A mess that I've made by giving them a set amount of saying, nah, Imali, this money is going to be for Inyam. You
Ish.
get it? And
Yeah.
I was like, I need to fix this in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and it will get resistance. It
Yeah.
will because again, I really don't blame our parents because that's how they grew up. That's
Yeah.
that's the right thing to do according to them. Yeah, but so to them it's not wrong.
Yeah. 100.
Um, so who are you to now come and change this whole thing?
Mm.
Yeah, but and I mean, I sit alone and think a lot. And as I said, I'm a very inquisitive person. And I was thinking to myself, Uguti, if we carry on with the cycle of Uguti, I start working, I have to send money at home, a specific amount of money that I send home. Um, no, let's just say at home, um, there's no, we don't have a house, and I buy them a house when I don't have a house. When is my life going to start? Because now, as I grow up, I'm going to expect the same thing from my kids.
Yep.
My kids are also going to expect the same thing from their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, but So when do we start as black people to start our own wealth whereby we are not expected to do certain thing for people behind?
Yeah.
So that's when I started to say, no man, something has to change. Yeah, well, and if we really say we the generation that's gonna where poverty is gonna end, Gati, or we the generation who's gonna start building that generational wealth, we need to start by doing uncomfortable things and things that are gonna be of change, which is not gonna come nicely,
Yeah.
which is putting boundaries to your family, which is saying no,
Yeah.
which I know for a lot of people is so hard to do or say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
well, because if Jabam Shil again, I'm not against giving it home because charity begins at home. I'm not against doing things for my mom, for my dad, for my stepdad, for my siblings. I actually would love to have that family structure whereby if there's somebody who has something, let's just say if my younger sister has an excursion, I'd be like, oh, I'll take care of her food, I'll take care of her clothes, I'll take care of paying for the excursion. I like that family structure.
Yeah.
But again, as you said, it's sporadic. Like it's a once in a while thing. Like I can, if I can, I will do it.
Yeah.
But now, if it's now becomes a debit order, it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Oof.
You see.
Yeah. Oh,
So my thing was, Wuti, allow me to try and create this wealth,
let me cook.
and let me give off. Let me cook. Let me give off the overflow. I'm not saying I'm leaving you guys behind. I haven't forgotten about you because that's the first thing black people will say.
Yeah.
Seloke nje. Seloke nje wathola umsebenzi. Seloke nje
Akasasazi.
wahamba. Asasazi, yabo? They will say those things, yabo? But see, being a game changer or being a person who's going to stop a lot of things because there's also a spiritual aspect to this.
Yeah.
Usatane likes to work in cycles and he wants us to keep us in the loop.
Yeah.
So if I really say I want to change this thing, I will need to face the physical aspects of it and the spiritual aspects of it. And I need to be brave enough and tough skin to say, it's fine. I will still go ahead with what I'm saying I'm going ahead with. You see? So let me cook, let me try and create this wealth, and let me give you off the overflow that I have. Kunokuthi ngiphile hand to mouth, because hand to mouth is not sustainable.
Mm.
I'm literally living for the next paycheck. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's really not sustainable because every time I get something, I have to send home and I have to scrap towards the end of the month. So, where do I now get the money to save? Where do I get the money to invest? Where do I get the money to make my money work for me when
Yeah.
I do not have the overflow?
Yeah.
I don't have anything to start my wealth with,
Yeah.
yeah, but which I need.
Mm.
So if I say I want to really change my generation or change my generational curse of poverty, if it is, or change the narrative of my family or my lineage, it has to start there. So the black tax issue is it's a sticky conversation whereby a lot of families or parents don't take it constructively or look at it as a um, they don't want to look at it modernly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they are still stuck behind. This is what we did, so we also kind of expect you to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas life has changed, bro. Like back then, our families wouldn't be able to work. No matter they would work, but they wouldn't have retirement plans. They wouldn't
Yeah.
have annuities. They wouldn't have those retirement funds. All of those things. But now our parents work. Our parents have retirement funds. So why should I send money at home when you have that?
Yeah.
Why should I and try and make you fulfill your dreams when you were given an opportunity to fulfill your dreams?
Yeah.
Ngoba phela, in life, as much as we're family, we're blood, we all here for a specific purpose that uNkulunkulu has brought us in life for. So why am I trying to help you in your purpose?
Mm.
Whereby you should be seeking God's help to fulfill your purpose. I should be applying myself and asking God to help me with my purpose.
Yeah.
You
No.
see, so it's a lot if you look at it in different perspectives. If you look at
Mm.
physically, if you look at culturally, if you look at spiritually, there's a lot in play,
Yeah.
and you really have to be a person who's very open minded to understand this whole concept of changing this whole narrative for Black people.
No, definitely. I get you, man. No, that's powerful. And so you were mentioning also how you like you were in that space where you'd send money every month. How did you change that? How did you then break that cycle, I guess?
Kakolo, that's all. I go,
You're just like, nah, bro. You're like
I'm not sending it, bro. Let me see what they say, bro. I'm not sending it.
was there a question?
But
Could they be like, hey, was there like a question like when they saw you?
no, at home, I feel like I'm the rebel because I oppose a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the time it did come off as when you're very stingy, when ucabangela ikhaya, uyicabanga wena, you know.
Mm.
So those are the things that njengoba they will come.
Yeah.
You will be told ukuthi you will be made. They will make you feel bad
Yeah.
for choosing you. Yeah, but
Yeah.
but see, I have a bigger picture.
Yeah.
So it was a thing of it's fine, bro. Like if that's what you think, it's fine. It's okay.
I'll
I'll
take
take it.
Yeah.
But see, every now and again, if I do have excess, I will send money. You see, oh, na imali lunch ma. Oh, ekhaya enza lokhu. Nakhona futhi when I do go home, I do buy groceries. If somebody needs money or asks for money and I have, I do give it to them.
Yeah.
So on what grounds are you saying ngicabangela ikhaya, or on what grounds are you saying I don't care about them, no, I've lost them? When you guys ask, I make means to make a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so yeah, it's like yeah, Kolo, that's how happens. I can't see the man. Yeah, man, cock.
And bro, that's ibalulekile leyo, bro. It's so important. I feel like like that's I commend that. Like you just saw, like I have to rectify this. I made a mistake here. It will be rectified before it becomes worse, and then I just cannot get out. So like that's really
Yeah.
important, bro. Look, I think okay, just I guess wrapping it up. What would you say? I guess moving forward, like as you're saying, we need to change the landscape because it's posing so many challenges, like just growing up in a black household as a gent, and like I even look at the landscape, it's like you see how it delays the progression of life in terms of change. And time
Mm,
is the one thing you cannot redeem. Can redeem lost money and whatever, but
yeah.
not time. And you see,
Mm,
there's this lost time in the average life of a black man where instead of maybe buying your first property at the age of 25, you're buying it at the age of 30 because there's this
mm,
notion of before I can take care of myself and build my life, let me make sure my family's okay. And that's
mm,
3 to 5 years that goes down the drain. That is
mm,
lost and cannot be redeemed because you'll hear people saying like, ngirenovate ekhaya, you know, and they'll
mm,
rent. Whereas they could have probably bought their first
mm,
property, that kind of stuff. Or I'm getting my siblings through school when you could have
mm,
been married and raising your first child in that time. So there's
yep.
this
Mm-hmm.
lost time in the life of a black person,
Mm,
of a black man. When I usually I look at the average life of a black man and the average life of a white man. Their
mm,
progression is a bit more better because not only are they not taking care of
yeah.
at home, the other aspects of it, because there's what you're talking about, the wealth that has been created, they
Mm,
they graduate and they already have a car because maybe at their 18th or
mm,
21st birthday their parents were like, here's a car, my son. So they're already
mm,
starting ahead of time, and they're
yep.
already able to build from that place on. And then you, on the other hand, there's no generational wealth that you're coming from, so there's no car in your 21st
Mm,
birthday or whatever. You starting from ground
mm,
zero. And even when you're starting from ground
mm,
zero, you're not building your own life. You're still taking care
mm,
of your parents' lives and setting them up. Then
yep.
only later on are you going to come and build your life from ground zero, not from a car, not from an apartment,
Mm-hmm.
from ground zero. So
Yep.
how then do you see, like, maybe moving forward, how do we change this narrative? Like you already mentioned, you already touched on it a bit, but I guess, like, just wrapping up, how do we
Yeah.
switch that and change that moving forward?
Okay. So, firstly, I'll say we, as Black people, we need to start valuing ourselves, right? That's one. We need to start telling ourselves that we deserve more and we deserve better, right? Because if I grow up in a township and I see Ubaba Mhlongo driving an Audi or a BMW, that's my ceiling, right? The only thing I'm aiming for is to get a BMW, kodwa ngihleli ekhaya. That's my ceiling,
Sure.
right? That's what I think as a black person. That's me. I've made it.
That's
Yeah,
a
bo? So once we start going out of the township, once we start going out of our comfort zone and actually seeing ukuthi there's more to life.
yeah.
There's actually more than what I think
Mm.
is the ceiling, you know. I think that's when we start wanting more for ourselves. So we need to start valuing ourselves. We need to start telling ourselves that we also should start expecting more for ourselves from ourselves. And I know boundaries in black communities is taboo.
Ish.
We
Yeah.
need to start creating boundaries, bro.
Yeah.
Saying no, I know is a taboo in the black household. It's okay to say no and choosing yourself.
Oh,
It's okay to say no, I'm focusing on myself. And when things are sorted for me, then I will come back for you guys.
yeah.
Yeah, but so I really think um and we need to also start educating ourselves because again our education system again is not doing any better for us because they are teaching us how to be employees, not employers. They are teaching us to get jobs, not to start
Ooh.
businesses or to make money. Yeah, but
Ooh, touching a nerve there.
and unfortunately, bro, and unfortunately, the same banks that we go to go seek for credit, they are still owned by apartheid superiors. So we also have that against us. So they speak a lot about freedom, freedom day, all of this, but we don't have economic freedom. So you will
Oh.
get somebody who will go to the bank and apply for a loan or a bond, and they will get um, maybe two times more interest rates than your white
Sure.
counterparts.
Sure.
So we also need to start educating ourselves as Black people on how to maneuver the system as much as it's against us. We need to start learning about taxes. We need to start learning about businesses. We need to start learning about money because, again, the mindset I can be rich but have a poor mindset or a
Yeah.
poor man's mindset, and I'm never gonna grow because
Yeah.
I'm still in the township. I'm still in Newlands. I'm still Ramash. I'm still in
Yo.
Lamont, but I'm rich.
Yo.
So, and I cannot sustain my wealth. The mindset Yagamash, the
Ish.
mindset Newlands. You
Yo.
get me? So again, we really need to step out
Yeah.
of what we say is our comfort. We need to educate ourselves
Yeah.
in knowing what there's more. We also need to make I don't know if I should say friendships or mutuals that are of other ethnic groups,
Yeah.
so we can see what are the loopholes. Yeah,
We
but
can learn
because
from them.
I've noticed yes, I've noticed ukuthi, black people they will always say, "Hey, abalungu bona benza kanje kanje kanje," and you start asking them, "Have you been exposed to white people?" No. Uyithatha le nto eshoyo.
Ish.
Umlungu ungcono kunami kulokhu nalokhu. Okay, wakwahlala nabelungu? Cha, angikaze. Uyithatha le nto eshoyo.
Oh.
Yeah, but so it's also important not to expose ourselves to all these other ethnic groups and see how they do things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's when we start not getting educated. We see, oh, I can actually maneuver in
Yeah.
Piloganja. I can actually maneuver. Yeah, but like there's so many even subsidies especially from the government that we don't know as black people, but see, white people use them.
Yeah.
Like there's something called the FLISP program
Yeah.
whereby you can get a subsidy if you're earning between I think 3.5 and 22,000,
Yeah.
whereby the government gives you money if it's your first home that you're buying. We
Yeah.
don't know those things. Why? Because I expect myself ukuthi ngizohlala elokishini, ngizosebenzela umlungu ngize ngishone, I retire and that's it. We don't see the bigger vision for ourselves. We don't see ourselves fulfilling our dreams that God has given us. We don't see ourselves as millionaires. We don't see ourselves as employers. We have the employee mindset.
Sure.
Yeah, well, so we as black people, we need to change those things.
Yeah, man.
If we
Yo.
really want to change the narrative, if we want to change the our generation, if we want to change the black man's life, there's so much, bro. There's
Yeah.
so much that we need to change. Yeah, well, and just know that we deserve better.
Yeah.
Unkulunkulu brought us in this earth. Uh, he didn't say which white people are more superior than us. He didn't say which who's superior. He
Yeah.
just gave us a dream and purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and he gave everyone that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so yes, white people will start from a half full cup growing up, but see, it does not give me the right to look down upon myself just because I did not start from a car or a house.
Yeah.
I can also still make that because God has put something in me, which is purpose.
Oof. Couldn't have said
Yeah,
it better,
well,
man. Couldn't have said it
so
better.
we really need to start believing that we also have big things coming for us,
Yeah.
and we just need to search for it. That's it.
Oh, nah, man. I so agree with that. And like just high level, all I'm taking from that is the mindsets. Like really, as the Bible say, like be
Yep.
transformed by the renewing of our mind. And language, man.
Yep.
Some of the things we've created our lives, the lives that we're living and that we are not happy about because of what we continue to confess, what we continue to say.
Yes.
It's the language, honestly,
Mm.
you hear certain things. I think with the language, just wrapping up, I remember my dad would often say this is when like they were still together, we were staying in the same house, and he'd often be like, "Hey, Sahlupeg," like randomly, "Hey,
Mm.
Sahlupeg, hey, Sahlupeg, hey, angnamal," he'll use those terms, "Hey, Sahlupeg, hey, asnamal," and I don't know, I was quite radical in the sense of, Brad, I'm very intentional about what I'm gonna say. So I'd often tell my mom. I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
did make some progress with my mom where she'd be like, "Hey, Angnamali," I'm like, "Don't say that." Hey, Angnamali, I'm like, "Don't bank account.
Yeah.
What's on your bank account right now? Open your app." I know 50 rand. What is that?
Yeah.
Imali, why are you saying you don't
Yeah.
have money?
Yeah.
You
Just
know?
just just to
Yeah,
add on that, there's a book that I'm reading, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a very famous book. I'm sure a
yeah,
lot of people
yeah,
know it. And the Roberts, the author, is saying he had a rich dad, obviously, and a poor dad. The poor dad was not really poor, but that was his biological dad,
yeah,
who believed in education, in learning more, in
yeah,
believing which the government will take care of him. And then he had the rich dad. The rich dad was actually his best friend's dad, who was an entrepreneur,
yeah,
ongafundanga to PhD level or even varsity, but he was just good with money. And as you're speaking about language, Uti, his poor dad would say, I can't afford it. But his rich dad would say, how can I afford it? Because
yeah,
if you have a statement, you're closing my mind, Uti, I can't afford it. We have value. You're telling your mind, don't think further than this.
yeah,
Whereby, if I ask the question, Uti, how can I afford it? Now I'm making my brain think, Uti, how can I actually afford this?
yeah,
So
yeah.
language is also important.
Very powerful. So
Yeah,
I'd always say to my dad, I'm like,
very
he'd be
powerful,
like,
bro.
"I'm not mali, I don't have money. Oh, Satlupeg," and I'm like, "No, don't say that. Like, what do you mean? Don't say that. Like, Ima listener." And he's like, "No, don't say I'm
Yeah.
not mali." And it's like he'd continue, and I'm like, and at some points I even stopped. I was like, you know what? Rather say Angnamal, because he'd say we. I'm like, no, no, no. Rather say I. Don't include me. Don't
Wait,
include
no, no,
me.
man.
So I can see you stubborn and sits. You stubborn and sits in your ways of I don't have money, I'm poor. Rather say I, rather don't say we. Don't include me. And then he'd get snarky about it. It's like, oh, so you have money, give me money. I'm like, nah, my money is not for you. I'm like, honestly, I don't have it physically, but so now he'd be like, okay, so Neymar, give me money. I'm like, nah, it has plans. Let it cook. So
I'm speaking it into existence.
the language, man. So that's also
Yes.
what I'm seeing that, and I'm taking that, and it's really powerful. The mindsets and the language as well. I feel like we can go so far just by that, and then the placements as well. Like, let's be strategic.
Yeah.
Let's learn from other people. Let's learn from other races. Let's learn from what other people do, how
Mm.
they go about it. Learn from the Jewish community how they create wealth. Learn from the white
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
how they make use of opportunities and work and allow the system to work for them as well. Like, you can learn from all these different ethnicities
Mm.
as well. So that was really
Yeah.
amazing, man. Thanks, bro. But yeah, man, I just want to thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for chatting with me. I feel like this was so fruitful. This was so
Yeah, dog.
amazing. I
Bro.
always told my wife
Yeah.
as well, like, I even what has driven me to even, start this podcast was I look at conversations I'd have even with my wife. I'm like, bro, sometimes I wish I could just put a camera and we can just chat
Right.
because you have these conversations
Yeah.
like the wisdom that is shared, the golden nuggets that are shared. I'm like, I wish this was recorded, and hence why I even took this, because I'm like, I'll chat to Jen so many times, whether it's a coffee or lunch, and I'm just listening to this. I'm like, this is so amazing. I wish other people can hear this.
Profound.
Like,
Yes.
it's so profound. I wish other
Yeah.
people can hear this. And I think that's what I'm also like, for me, I've realized is that you don't need people that are maybe educated. Yeah, education is great. Yeah, you can chat to CEOs, but sometimes it doesn't need to be chatting to a CEO or chatting to an MD or a VP of a bank or the president or someone distinguished. It's sometimes just a fellow friend or brother or some stranger. You have a conversation. Man, I'm like, the conversation I've had with Uber drivers. And I'm like, this is great. I'm
Bro,
like,
I have the craziest Uber drivers.
I'm like, bro, you have such wisdom that people need to hear,
Such wisdom.
So
bro.
thank you again, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate this. It was
Yeah,
so
Doug, thank
great
you
chatting.
for having me, bro. And it was amazing, bro. And I hope we can have another conversation. Doug, we always have conversations, bro. There's so
Definitely.
much wisdom amongst us. There's so much learnings because I learned so much from you. So Jay, bro, yeah, bro, like hope you can keep on doing this, and I hope it gets to someone and it touches someone in some way, because at the end of the day, Futsi, we try as much as possible to serve in any way that God has, with the gifts or talents that God has given us.
Yeah.
So I really hope, Futsi, moving forward with your podcast, people do get touched and they get answers that they've been looking for and searching for. So yeah, bro, all the best, bro, and thank you for having me.